Hey guys, Everything Apple Pro here, and in this video I'm bringing you a comparison of 10 iPhones. That's right, 10 iPhones from the newest iPhone 6 Plus, iPhone 6 down to the 5S, 5C, 5, 4S, 4, 3GS, 3G, and 2G. So this is every iPhone ever made, and I just want to show you how far Apple has progressed from the original iPhone 2G all the way to the newest 6 and 6 Plus. You may be surprised, every generation we see a little bit of a change, not something big, but over time we can look back, through tests like these and actually see how far Apple has managed to progress. Now I've already done this twice, and it's really interesting to see how all of these iPhones stack up against each other in these tests, and it's not getting any easier. With every iPhone release, that amount just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And I do need help, of course, so I do apologize for the number of hands in this video, but the first test we're going to do is a shutdown. In this test, I noticed there isn't much of a difference. Most of these devices now turn off, almost instantaneously, especially the newer devices on iOS 8. Now it gets really interesting during the boot up test, and take note, the further right we go with these phones, the weaker they are, and it might surprise you which one boots up first. So there are a couple factors to consider. The newer the operating system, the more features it has to boot. However, the older the device, the weaker it is. So that makes a really interesting mix when doing the startup test. All of these devices have been freshly restored on their newest firmware. So first place isn't the 6 or 6 Plus, it's the iPhone 5S, quickly followed by the iPhone 6, and then the 6 Plus, then the 5C, then narrowly the iPhone 2G, then the 5, then the iPhone 4S, 3GS, and it's going to be a while, but eventually the iPhone 3G beats the iPhone 4. So iPhone 4 is in last place. Why is that? Well, I think that's because Apple decided not to give up on the device. They wanted to give it iOS 7, even though it was a little bit beyond its hardware limitation. Now, this isn't much in terms of a hardware test, so let's go ahead and run a Geekbench to let you guys know how these devices actually compare to each other in terms of raw processing power. Unfortunately, the 3G and 2G don't support the application, and even if they did, I feel like I'd grow old before the application actually finished running the test. On the 3G, it literally took over 15 minutes, whereas on the 6 Plus, it was under a minute. And if you take a look at the actual specs I placed above these devices, you'll notice that, it's pretty low in comparison to many Android phones, even the older iPhones. You'll notice Apple hasn't made many huge leaps and bounds in terms of adding a lot of gigahertz and RAM to their devices, and that's for a very good reason, because Apple has always been great at optimizing their devices to run the latest stuff, the best graphic applications, stuff like that, without needing a lot of raw power. Just really good system optimization. Nothing surprising in the Geekbench results. We do see a slight increase in power for every single generation. Next, we're going to load reddit.com, and the newer devices, they load it almost instantaneously thanks to the new JavaScript engine. And as you can see, they just go down one by one from the 6 Plus all the way down to the 2G, and the 2G's out of Wi-Fi, so can't load it, but they do load it in order one by one. And here we can see that the newer devices do get the better JavaScript engine, so they will load web pages a little bit better, also thanks to preloading. And as you guys can see, it's kind of surprising to see some of the older devices perform better than the newer ones, say in the startup test, but Apple has been making steady progress from the very first 2G all the way to the newest 6 Plus in streamlining, making them a little bit faster every single generation. And I personally don't see a reason that you jump from a 5S to a new 6 or 6 Plus just based on a little bit of an extra speed boost, because as you guys can see, they work so good as it is. It's just a very marginal difference between every single generation, but of course it is getting better, and it's good to see in retrospect how much Apple has improved from the original iPhone 2G. And I do understand that between these devices, speed isn't the only difference, but if you're just looking at speed between upgrading from one device to another, it's really not the best idea because the differences are just so small. But hopefully this video helped give you an idea of how the iPhone 2G compares to the 6 Plus and everything in between. Have a great day, guys. Peace.